For our project, we focused on academic and learning challenges, specifically ADHD in grades K through 8 by Brianna, Jessica, and Maddie. What you should know. Okay. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, more commonly known as ADHD, is a genetic learning difference that makes it difficult to pay attention, stay still, and have a higher sense of impulsivity. ADHD can cause a strain on the lives of children and their success in school, especially when going undiagnosed. According to Forbes, 9.8% of children between the ages of 3 to 17 get diagnosed with ADHD, and as you can see, the majority of them are boys. This is because symptoms of ADHD appear differently in boys than girls, allowing more boys to be diagnosed at a higher rate. Also, more Black and non-Hispanic children get diagnosed due to the higher rate at which education reporters report it. ADHD has been present for hundreds of years, but has only been officially known as ADHD for 43 years. It has had many different titles, one in the early 1900s being hyperkinetic disorder of childhood. This disorder was more thought of as a birth defect or brain damage. It was mainly treated with medication, and while some still chose to take medication, others also used cognitive behavioral therapy as a way to treat ADHD. Finally, in 1980, the American Psychiatric Association recognized ADHD as a part of mental health.
Why is ADHD important, and why is it important that we talk about it? So Cockhill et al., this study was a European study that was done on many different countries in Europe, and involved a completion of an online questionnaire by parents of children 6 to 18 years with ADHD, that's the ADHD sample, and without ADHD, that's the normative population sample. And according to those families, ADHD was reported to impact most significantly on children's lives, many of their functions in daily life, such as homework, family routines, playing with other children. So if a child has ADHD, their relationship with others were not also negatively affected, and especially those between parents and child. Parents also found that more children with ADHD experienced a personal injury in the preceding 12 months, including those require the attention of healthcare professionals. So as we can see, the breadth of the problem is large, and the negative impact persists in the 24-hour of day of people who are diagnosed with ADHD. And it is, as previously mentioned, very prevalent. In the educational environment, it affects the ability to focus, work efficiently, verbally impulsive. The child can be hyper talkative. Those are some of the symptoms of those negative behaviors. But it's also important to recognize that people who have ADHD are also have strength in other ways. So since we're taking this neurodivergent view of the brain, they can actually be highly creative and can be successful later in life. So it is very important to address it not only as a mental health problem, but as a neurodivergent issue of a specific set of the population that needs to be recognized and supported. Yes.
A complete evaluation for ADHD can be done as young as 4 years old and has 3 main components to it, which are medical, psychological, and educational. A child who is thought to have ADHD must be evaluated at all 3 levels. However, these 3 evaluations do not make it fully complete. Input also plays an important role, and information from schools is required before an evaluation can take place. In addition to input, surveys are also a large part of the evaluation process and must be completed by both parents and teachers. Based on the basic symptoms of ADHD and the age at which children can begin testing, boys are evaluated and diagnosed with ADHD at a higher rate than girls are, like previously mentioned.
All right, let's go on to youth considerations. So children and adolescents with ADHD, they typically benefit from classroom-based behavioral interventions and academic accommodations. You'll see usually a combination of those two, and I'll go into detail a little bit more about what that entails in the classroom through our interventions guide and beyond throughout this presentation. Interventions tend to be about management skills, right? Plans, teaching kids how to organize and study on their own. And there might be accommodations needed in the classroom as well. And these can include like preferential seating, so a student being able to kind of pick out where they want to sit throughout the classroom can help them feel like they have a sense of control and ability to contribute. Perhaps reduce class load and work. A child with ADHD might feel overwhelmed, and so reducing the classwork for that child could provide the ability to kind of self-soothe for that child as well as extended times on tests and exams can also be very beneficial for academics in the classroom as well. The school may provide accommodations through what is called a 504 plan, or for children who specifically qualify for an IEP. So these tend to be for, again, more severe cases of ADHD where other types of classroom management may have been previously tried and unsuccessful, and so then resorting to a permanent 504 plan, which will be evident on the child's record throughout their time in that school. All right, so the evolution of ADHD as a student ages. I think the most important thing to note about this slide is to note that ADHD does change as a student ages, right? And so those symptoms are not going to look the same when a child's in elementary school versus when they are in a later part of elementary or even early high school, right? Middle school and beyond. So ADHD symptoms, can change over time as a child grows and moves into the preteen and teenage years. In young children with ADHD, hyperactivity and impulsivity are the most common symptoms. Okay, so that's tend to be what we know from young kids. We see them being hyperactive and jumpy. It tends to be kind of the hallmark sign of ADHD. But as the academic and social demands grow, the symptoms of inattention become a lot more evident as the child develops, right? So they're making friends and maybe they're not able to focus in school, or trying to focus in school and not able to make friends, and vice versa. And that can interfere with all sorts of things, family relationships, academic performances, such as grades going into high school, and that can put a lot of pressure on a student. In adolescence, the hyperactivity element often becomes less severe, right? So students often aren't quite as hyper, and it's more seen on the outside more as just restlessness or fidgeting. The symptoms of inattention and impulsivity typically do continue and even worsen into adolescence, which can cause worsening academic, organizational, and relationship challenges as well. So teens with ADHD, they do need to be monitored and watched for their impulsive and potentially risky behavior in the early teen years, which includes substance abuse and unsafe sexual activity. All right, so treatment for ADHD in kids. There's actually no known cure for ADHD, but there are several different types of treatments, and those treatments are focused really on reducing the symptoms, so helping the child focus and improve their functioning really in school and with those peer relationships, so their classmates, their friendships, and even their family relationships at home. So some of those common treatment options include medication, so education or training, so that can be educating the child on their disorder, educating the family, the teachers, anybody who's going to be in regular contact with the student, right? Can include therapy for the student, right? The student being able to talk about when they feel overwhelmed and identify some those ADHD triggers that can help them as well. And additional parental support, right? So again, having those parents on board to be able to support their child really helps to reduce the stigma as well, and helps kids feel like that they have adults in their corner, which can again give them the ability really to do better academically and with those peer groups. All right.
Parent and guardian considerations. So supporting a child with ADHD is not the same as the support a non-ADHD child requires. When you're supporting a child with ADHD, a positive attitude and optimism are very essential. Many times they feel that they are inadequate, so reminding them of their strengths makes a huge difference when they make a mistake. Clear expectations, consistency, and structure all go hand in hand with ADHD children. They often become distracted and get off task easily, so maintaining a structured routine in which they know what to expect can give them a sense of independence. This is especially important during the school week when they have work to do. Extracurricular activities like sports are positive for children with ADHD as it allows them to release extra energy and also socialize. Along with that, it gives them an opportunity to excel in something, especially when school is known to be a challenge with ADHD children. While it is often discussed what a child with ADHD struggles with, the struggles of the caregivers tend to be overlooked. Many parents and guardians feel personally responsible for their child's ADHD and the hardships that come along with it. However, the most important thing for caregivers to do is not blame themselves. It is not their fault that their child struggles with certain things, and no matter how on top of them the parent and guardian are, the symptoms of ADHD do not go away. Along with this comes quite a bit of stress, fatigue, and worry. Staying abreast of their child's schedule and ensuring their work gets done, along with their own responsibilities, will quickly burn someone out if they are not taking care of themselves. To add to the pressure and stress of having a child with ADHD, they worry that their child is being singled out for their differences and how others will reject or judge their children. So when you're supporting a parent whose child has ADHD, it is important we give them proper support and tools for day-to-day life. The first thing I would suggest for ADHD caregivers would be to do their best to understand how the ADHD mind works. By doing this, they are able to better understand why their child reacts the way they do and how to best help their child. Going to speak to someone is always helpful, but parent support groups can also be a huge help too. Having a group of parents that relate to you and understand and offer advice is very important. When it comes to your ADHD child in school, knowing the child's educational rights can make a big difference, not only at school, but at home. So knowing the accommodations your child is allowed makes room for less stress in the long term. Finally, it is vitally important for ADHD caregivers to take time for themselves. Self-care is instrumental in maintaining a healthy household and mindset.
Okay, I will talk about treatment goals. So as for medical disorders and many mental health disorders, the treatment goal and the treatment itself will differ based on individuals, based on how what the symptoms are, how symptoms affect the child's academics, behaviors, social interactions, and emotional well-being. And these are the domains that we normally look at as children are in the family and in school environments as their functioning skills, so normative behavior in these domains. So first of all, academic goals. We would like the students to be able to learn with supportive instructional accommodation and or interventions in class because of their lack of attentions, more support such as more time given to take exams may be given as an accommodation. And then we have behavior goals. So behavior to be able to monitor their own behavior and try to control one's own impulses. And these are done through behavior interventions and maybe positive reinforcements. There's the social goal, being able to socialize with peers in school, forming positive relationship with peers and other, including their family and parents. Emotional well-being goal, being able to recognize and identify different emotions in self and others. And empathy is also helpful for behavior issues such as their symptoms of interrupting or talking too much. Next slide, please. And a little bit about the types of intervention for ADHD. Maddie had covered this, and then I'm just going to expand on it a little bit. So medication, there are different types of it, and depending on the individual, they may be suitable for one or the other, but typically they're stimulant or non-stimulant. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is based on the cognitive behavioral model of being aware of one's thoughts and feelings will then increase the concentration and focus. And it also targets working on thinking before acting and resisting urges. There is the family and marital therapy. It works on how to handle disruptive behaviors effectively and improving the relationship with the person with ADHD. Next slide, please. There is the parenting skills training, also called behavior parent management training, teaching parents skills such as positive reinforcement, giving immediately positive feedback and redirect and ignore behaviors. And then there is specific behavioral classroom management interventions and or academic accommodations. So this includes the 504 or the IEP. It also includes teaching the organization and study skills, behavior management, and then giving, as stated before, preferential seating, reduced classwork, extended times on projects and tests.
All right, so cultural considerations. How does ADHD affect different populations? So there was a 2018 cohort study of almost 250,000 children that examined the association between race and the diagnosis of ADHD. Asian, Black, and Hispanic children were significantly less likely to be diagnosed compared to white children, which doesn't mean, again, that they aren't getting it, just means that they are not being diagnosed. White children are also more likely to receive treatment, which, again, does make sense considering they're being diagnosed at a much higher rate. And these findings do suggest that there are some racial and ethnic disparities in the diagnosis, specifically if ADHD is seen through schools, and schools do refer their students for additional medical treatment or help. And so, again, it does depend on the socioeconomic status of the school, for example, and what geographic area the student lives in as well, to name a few factors. And so let's go ahead to the next slide. I want to show a graph. So this graph shows racial disparities in diagnosis of ADHD in the U.S. National Birth Cohort. So that's from this study. So this is from about 5 years ago now. And so again, you can see age and years. They start to be getting diagnosed really noticeably around 6. And then the cumulative, incidence and percentage along the left-hand column there. So that's the rate there on the left, and then the years in the, x-axis there. So we have the white line, really obviously being diagnosed at the highest rate, really separating off around age 8 is when you can really start to see those disparities. And I think what's surprising about this too is the low diagnosis rate of Asian students. And I think that there are some really potentially interesting factors around that. The study also mentioned the fact that Asian students are often given opportunities by their parents and kind of forced to pursue higher course of study, and so may not be diagnosed initially with ADHD, and so it could be a cultural influence again there. So something again that was highlighted in the study. All right.
Okay, so what to consider when you are working with a client who has ADHD. It is important to find the main focus that you want to work on with that client. Since ADHD manifests differently in each child, knowing what your focus is will help you know which best techniques to use for your client. This also accomplishes the first part of the SMART goals. SMART goals are a useful tool for both the therapist to use with the client and also for the client to use on their own, as it helps them set and accomplish goals, which is very helpful when having ADHD. Setting goals for ADHD clients gives them something to focus their attention on and feel good about themselves when it gets completed. An important aspect of this is to stay realistic about the goals we are setting with our ADHD clients so they do not feel discouraged or apprehensive about being able to accomplish these goals. Positive reinforcement, action-oriented, and play therapy are all things that have been noted to play a positive role in sessions with ADHD clients. Being action-oriented coincides with the SMART goals as it focuses on creating specific and measurable goals so our clients can easily manage their time. Play therapy allows our ADHD clients to be in a setting they're comfortable in, for example, on the playground playing basketball or going for a walk. Group therapy can also be very helpful for ADHD clients as well, because like the parent support groups I previously mentioned, it allows a safe environment for them to talk about their ADHD and relate to the children around them as they're going through similar, environments, similar situations.
And some facts about race, discrimination, and prejudice around ADHD. So according to a study that was done in 2019, the adults with ADHD are vulnerable to feeling internalized stigma, anticipating discrimination in daily life, and perceived public stigma. And the most prevalent stereotype about them is the doubt that ADHD as a valid mental health disorder. The study showed that because of the shame and low self-esteem that people with ADHD may have because of these internalized stigma or anticipated discrimination based on their previous experiences, they are not able to speak up due to, and then the anxiety and depression that follows the doubt. Therefore, many adults have faced demotion or bullying in the workplace. It is important to recognize that the 504 plan actually protects students from discrimination based on disability, and individual teachers are liable to protect these students.
Next, we'll move on to community references. So the Bay Area Center for ADD and ADHD is a company that provides a multitude of services to those who have ADHD or those who are living with people who have ADHD. While they are centrally located in the Bay Area, they also offer services via Zoom for any California resident with ADHD. Some services they include are assessments, cognitive behavioral therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, and much more. They focus on giving support and tools to those with ADHD and have specialized team of psychologists, marriage family therapists, and social workers on their team. While there was no specific price listed, it did mention that insurance can help cover the cost of their services.
Another is the California Integrative Counseling Center located in San Francisco. They have a very comprehensive website that gives all of their CBT support groups, those for women, for men, for all gender, the skills building workshop for newly diagnosed ADHD support team. So there are many, many resources, groups available on this website. They also do individual counseling. They do not accept insurance, Medi-Cal or Medicare. So that is something to note.
And finally, the Bay Area ADHD Assessment Centers. They have offices all over the Bay Area: Antioch, Oakland, Moraga, San Francisco, San Jose, and many more also in SoCal. I put the phone number for their closest branch, I believe the Oakland branch there, on the left. They offer accessible comprehensive assessments, psychological screenings and neuropsychological testing. They don't take insurance, but apparently they can really reduce your bill, and they really try to be equitable in that sense. They're proud to offer immediate access to their services. Their pricing is very fair according to their website, and they are very easy to book, and they have quick turnaround times, which can be very helpful as well. They believe in full transparency and will openly share their exact information protocol to any prospective client so that the client can be an informed consumer, which is really cool. So they do have this sense of transparency, which is awesome. And all of their assessment data is reviewed by at least 2 licensed psychologists. So again, you have that second opinion kind of built into the assessment, which can be a really helpful factor too. So it sounded like a really helpful center for families in the Bay Area. All right.
Thank you for watching our presentation. Here are our references.
Thanks, guys.